Hello, everyone. My name is Bennett Sung. I am with Fair Now. I'm very excited to introduce this great topic that we're exploring, and that is AI's potential in regional banks without the compliance headaches. We have some really strong experts in the space of private AIs, as well as AI governance. So I would love to introduce to you. We have representing Proxzar. We have Shrikant, who's the lead developer and CEO, as well as Earl Mann, marketing strategist. And also representing Fair Now, we have CEO and founder Guru. So we're excited for everyone to sit back and learn. And just one quick technical check for those that are out there. If you have an opportunity to just tell us where you're dialing in from, we would love to hear what areas of the country and the world we're seeing you from. So if you can do that in the comments section, that'll be great. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to hand this over to Earl and Shrikant.
Hey, everybody. Thank you. Welcome. I guess I'll go first, Shrikant. Keep this quick. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. Today is really designed for you to be a cliff notes into some things that we think might be extremely valuable as we deal with this massive wave change that's being brought on by AI. My name is Earl Mann, and one of the things that might give unique perspective is that I actually helped introduce AI machine learning to some government industries back in 2000. So back in 2000, we had this earthquake of change that everybody predicted would change everything. But we in the industry knew that that change would come over a very long period of time, which we are now experiencing. And now I can say that people in the industry know that it's going to be the complete opposite this time. Change is going to come at a mind-boggling fast pace. So today is just to design to help get your mind around your planning, around your insights around things that you might do to aid your planning or your your execution of using AI. Shri, you want to give them a little bit of your background?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I am Shrikant. I'm more than a founder. I'm a lead developer of a private AI platform called Proxzar. And myself, looking at my gray hair, mustache, you can figure it out. I'm a veteran. I'm a veteran of IT industry with over nearly 3 decades of experience spanning the complete SDLC process. Specifically related to the artificial intelligence, I have been in this field for the past decade. And it is more, I would say, calling may be a very big word here, but it's a kind of, how do you put it? Something that essentially dragged me into this to explore the possibility of how AI can be used to help an individual. Something like what we are talking of a chatbots today. It was like envisioning during the days of IBM Watson a decade ago. And that being said, and will anything technical related to these private AI models and how they differ vis-a-vis the chat GPTs of the world that you might have heard, feel free to shoot me all those tech questions. And the business side, my colleague Earl will take care of. And yeah, looking forward to a good, meaningful, and intellectual conversations in this session. Thank you. Yeah.
That's great. So you want to go to the first slide. So the intention of today, we're going to go fairly quick. If you want to change slides,
Sure.
We're going to go fairly quick. And as we go through this, the intent of this is for you to, we're going to start off very general and very brief, and we're going to slow down as we go through. But in the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to try to help you understand the difference between a private AI model approach, which few people really understand. We're going to compare that to some of the limitations of public LLMs, which everybody's now exposed to. At least we hope everybody on this call. And we're going to get into some of those things and use cases. And we're going to talk about the advantage of taking a multi-model approach as to just relying upon one particular model. And then we're going to talk about the framework of using an open source AI platform. A lot of which you've seen recently in the news from companies like DeepSeek. We're going to help you understand why that news about what they were able to do so quickly was so potentially disruptive to people's planning. So let's move into this. So here, at a high level, we all understand we're assuming that everybody's used AI or uses AI every day now. Most people use some version of a public LLM, and we like to akin that to the analogy we're going to give to start to separate the idea of a private AI from a custom AI. From a public AI, is that of a tailored suit versus that of a closet full of suits. And on the surface, everybody understands the differences, right? One suit that's really customized to fit a person versus multiple suits that kind of come off the rack. But what we'd like you to think about a little bit deeper is what this is actually telling you. For example, when you have something that is customized, as you, the person, changes, you grow, you gain weight, you lose weight, right? You can rapidly adjust the suit to better fit the changes in who you are. And you understand how much more complex that would be if you had a closet full of suits and you personally made a change. Just the logistics of making the changes across all of those different suits in this case would be the tasks of doing those are completely different and completely a much higher level of complexity. Srikanth, if you want to just add a little bit to just some of the fundamental differences between a private AI model and a public AI model before we get into more detailed examples.
Sure. Yeah, sure, Earl. So when we're talking of, like, say, private AI model, before that, let's understand what exactly is not a private AI model. So we're talking of something like, generally speaking, we can call it as a public AI. So what do I mean by public AI? Like the public AI, for example, the chat GPT behind, actually it uses a GPT-4, GPT-4o or whatever. So they are actually, we can call them as a public AI models. The reason why they are public is basically they are trained on vast or huge amounts of data that is available out there. Mostly it's like it's a Wikipedia or whatever the kind of like the data sets that they can lay hands on. So that's all the publicly supposed to be, actually, it's again, it's supposed to be in quotes, supposed to be publicly available data from which those models are trained. So we call them as a public AI models. And then what do you mean by private AI models in this context? Private AI models essentially are those models which are built or which are trained using the private data of organizations. So, for example, organizations, all of the organizations' data won't be exposed to public. So there is a good amount of organization data which is private. So those kind of, like, say, the private data that reside within the organization boundaries, we actually use that to build a private AI model. And why do we do that? It's like the example that Earl has quoted. It's like a custom fit versus one size fits all. All these public AI models are kind of like the one size fits all, unless you fine tune them based upon, again, a certain set of restrictions. In this case, it's always a custom fit where you bring the data and we train a private AI model, and that is for you and you only. You means
Yeah, I think
your
the next slide is
organization.
going to, I think the next slide, well, we can elaborate on that fundamental idea
Yeah.
now. Go ahead, next slide.
Yeah.
So before we do that, we're going to give you cliff notes as we go along. These are things you should be considering well down the road of considering, or have groups of people thinking about. What areas in your enterprise do you really intend to improve with AI? What are your specific desired outcomes for AI? And how will you measure the success of those targeted outcomes? Those are ways that are very practical when you start to plan on how and what you're going to do with AI. So next slide. So Srikanth talked about the example of general versus private knowledge. I'm the simple example guy. So a simple example of the difference that might make. In some cases, general intelligence and general knowledge may be good enough. For example, if you wanted to know generally where I was, I'm in Las Vegas at the moment. A map or a dot on the map might suffice. If all you needed to know was generally where I was existing in this moment, and I told you I was in Las Vegas, for whatever reason you needed to know that, a map might be good enough. But if you needed to know specifically where in Las Vegas, what are my cross streets, what businesses are near me, what's the distance between this business, that type of level of knowledge, you need much more detailed knowledge. And that can't really come from a general intelligence. What we're going to talk about is the trust factor. So everybody now knows that large language models hallucinate. In other words, they give you an answer that has nothing to do with the truth. But here's the challenge in that. It is so good at responding logically and using actual information that unless you already know the answer to be false, you won't know it's false when you read it. And I'm hoping people really get this, because a lot of people underestimate the liability of false information appearing to be true. And you can test it yourself. Just go to an LLM and ask a question about something you know very little about, like what's the relationship between, I don't know, quantum physics and an agriculture. It will give you an answer. But unless you already know those two subjects, you won't know whether the answer you're reading is true or not. Srikanth, you want to expand on just that hallucination problem? That's very common in public LLMs.
Right, right. So as a matter of fact, majority of these, like say the public AI models, you see them, they actually have a kind of like say fine print. The model, they'll actually mention, of course, they don't use the word hallucination. They suggest you to like say verify it by a human. That's what they have that. So I don't remember exactly the phrase these guys they use, so the chat GPT and the perplexity. Perplexity to an extent they're good. But essentially what it implies, hallucination implies, is that the response that has been provided by the public AI models, it is not necessarily be true. That's what it is. So as an
That's a good.
example, as El was quoting, so if you ask a question about the quantum physics and in agriculture, definitely that a public AI model, if you can ask Chat GPT as you're listening now, you can actually, what is the difference between quantum physics and agriculture? It might be able to like say, provide a kind of like an answer, but that may not be actually true. It will be true only when it is validated. It's validated by an expert who understands both the subjects. So that's what it's hallucination, and we have a way of how to deal with this hallucination by through our private AI models. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
and a practical case example would be in industries where preciseness matters, like
Right.
finance or legal. It's a fundamental difference between a public LLM answering a legal case law question versus a law firm having an AI answer it based on its internal data on that specific case law and that specific law firm's history with that specific case law. There are two different approaches. Now, as we go through this, we're not knocking LLMs at all. They're brilliantly serve a place in our lives. We're just making the case to help you understand the difference between the private AI and the public AI model. So next slide. And we know we're going a little quick, but this is just to help you get insight for your planning. So some questions you might want to take away are: what is the relevant data that would be best for you to train your AI on? And in what systems does this data reside? Where is it located in your enterprises? Because quite often you're going to find some very useful data in some systems, other useful data in other systems that at this moment they may not be connected. But that doesn't stop us from using those systems those data wherever they may reside in the building of your model. And another important question is: what are the specific data restrictions around each individual type of data based upon where it resides and how it's being used? Next slide.
Yeah, I would just like to add one more point here, Earl. So when you're
Sure.
talking of the data restrictions nowadays, it's actually even the sovereign governments, they're actually having a kind of like a regulator mechanism where if certain businesses are limited by the amount of data that they can transfer outside the geographical boundaries of that particular sovereign country. For example, if you're something related to like I think finance this is very true in especially in the finance related or banking sector for that matter. So where the customers, whatever the customer information cannot go beyond the geographic boundaries. So that also we call it as a data restriction. Essentially, it is a kind of a data residency requirements, but we are clubbing them as a data restriction. Right, Earl?
That is great. And another point I'll make as we move to the next slide is there are ways that you can build these private AI models without actually needing to move your data outside of your enterprises that you already have rules around, governance around. So you don't have to necessarily move data outside of your enterprise to build a private AI model. And we can talk to you individually about how we do that. Next slide.
Right.
So this is a big one. So most people right now, we're going to talk about cost. And most people think about today, near-term costs, right? So they look at a LLM of the flavor of their choice, and they say, you know what, for $100 or $200 or $500 or whatever that pro level is, we can interact with this LLM, right? And that's very short-sighted. So there's development cost and access cost, your access to the model. And then there's cost around how do you get your access to that model to actually enhance business systems. But the cost we want to talk about today is a cost that few people really factor into our planning, which is cost of ownership, cost of operation, what it costs you to have this in a production system running. And that can be summed up in what's inference cost. Like, what does it cost you to use that large language model? And in most cases, what you're going to find is escalating cost that scales with both usage and number of users, right? So in the beginning, you're going to have very little cost to access a large language model. But very quickly, once you start using that model, your cost is going to grow exponentially because of the inference cost, how much it costs to hit that large language model to retrieve the information you want. The complete difference is that we can completely control or dramatically control that inference cost in a private model. Just because of the nature of the difference in the way the two models work. In the examples that you see, you probably can't really see the charts well, but the inverted incline graph is both a public LLM, and the next one is a LLM that has been fine-tuned on some data. They both have escalating costs. The line that seems to be fairly flat, that's the relative comparison to using a private AI model. So there's a fundamental different long-term cost in using a private model versus using a public LLM. The difference is in the beginning cost, and the difference is in the long-term usage cost. Did I leave out anything, Srikanth?
No, you have covered, Earl. So I'll add a couple of things here to this, to what you just said. So as you see, it's like the blue one is, of course, I wish actually we could have zoomed it, but unfortunately we don't have that now. So basically, the blue color line is the public AI model. It's the vertical y-axis is the cost, and the x-axis is the number of what we call is the tokens. So as the number of tokens usage increases, the cost increases. And the way the cost increases, as you see in the graph, it is exponential for the public AI models, which is in blue color. And it's flat because the private AI model, of course, it has to process tokens, but we don't price it based on the tokens. We price it based on the hardware infrastructure that is used to host the private AI model. That's why you see it as a flat. That is one thing. And talking of tokens, why should actually increasing number of tokens increase the price? Oh, it's simple. It's if you, let's say, for example, if an organization has 100 users, and each user, let's say, executes around 100 queries a day. So each query comprising of, you can say it's around 1,000 input tokens. So when you're talking of a 1,000 input tokens, of course, when you say it's a query, it's like it's a 10 words. Let's say 10 words or roughly around 14 tokens. But it's not just like, say, especially when you talk in the language of public AI, it's not just the tokens. The input tokens in the query, but also the prompt, essentially the context tokens that you send as part of your input, as part of your prompt. So that whole everything over a period of time, the moment it actually crosses, as you see both lines crossing around roughly around 40 million tokens, it just like say shoots up exponentially. As you can see, there's a steep curve in the graph.
Yeah,
So
so
the pricing difference, yeah, I'll just finish off
Mhm.
with this statement, Earl. So the price, it's a very crucial price difference that please note this very crucial pricing difference. The way the pricing is done for a private AI model, our private AI model, and the actual public AI models, and more or less the price is same. The graph that you're seeing is for GPT-4o. Uh, so so the pricing is the difference is for the public AI, the pricing is based on the number of tokens that have been consumed. The tokens includes your input tokens and also the output tokens. And in some cases, even the web calls also, for example, in Perplexity. But whereas in in our private AI model, it is the hardware. So the hardware that the line that I think roughly it comes around $180,000 in year. So it is for the top-notch Amazon, one of the with 8 GPUs. So that's the kind of a pricing which we think is good for any average kind of average size private AI model. So that's the pricing is very crucial here. So that I want you to please note. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me at the end of our or during our Q&A session. Yeah, go
And
ahead, Earl.
the next slide will give you things to think about as you do your planning. So now that you understand that there are two types of costs, one is just to get it up and access and stand up costs. Let's just call that development costs. But then there's ongoing operational costs, this inference cost. That's the one that most people overlook, but it rapidly becomes the most challenging thing in an enterprise because escalating costs is hard to build a business around. And the other thing you would want to start to think about the ROI on making the investment into this cost is what is the impact the AI might have on other existing initiatives that you have already budgeted. We already see people that are looking at their AI budget, and a lot of where that AI budget is coming from is reducing some of other budgets. So you need to get your mind around your total IT strategy so that you're putting the dollars in the place that serves you the best for the longest period of time. Next slide. And we're going to kind of, okay, so the last things are just more, these are useful concepts for you to really get your mind around. I know we have about 2 or 3 minutes left in our section. But your ability, once we build a private AI model, you are not restricted to using that private AI model for the first initiative that you built the model to do. That's just the starting point. Once you have a private AI model, it will really understand you, your data, the interrelationships between that exist in your data, how that data is connected, often in ways that may not be that apparent to you. We bring to visibility the non-obvious relationships that you can now use in your business processes. And this allows you to also do very, very efficient prediction or better prediction. Um, and a multi-model, we take a multi-model approach to do this. So, and I'm kind of talk about the next 2 slides in one for the efficiency of time. So we take a multi-model approach to do this. So right now, you see that the LLMs are broadening their ability to be multimodal, right? Which is text, video, voice, audio, graphs, charts, which is great. But to the same value that multimodal brings to extending what you can do with a model, a multi-model approach has the same upward pressure on your potential ROI, right? Because we used a large language model, we use statistical analysis, we use extractive AI, we use multiple models to allow you to leverage your private AI. And this multi-model approach gives you the best chance of future capabilities, regardless of the data type that information started from. So in a financial institution, you may have to have precise information that's literally specific to a bank account or an account number, or you may have general understandings of market trends and these different things. And your systems will be able to handle both of those at the customer level. Your customer will have a much broader ability to interact with your systems, both in a precise manner and in a more generalized manner, but all within the structure and box of your proprietary fact-based information. Srikanth?
Yeah, that's right, Earl. So this multi-model approach essentially is when you're talking of a private AI models. Private AI models, it could be a generative, it could be extractive, it could be a statistical model, or it could be a knowledge graph, or a combination of one and more of these. The reason why we actually take we have this is a very unique approach of us. So the reason why we take it is that number one, the topmost concern is reduce hallucinations that comes out of the generative AI. So knowledge graph, to an extent, it essentially reduces its hallucination coming out of the generative AI. And to be more precise, we actually, depending on the use case of that particular organization, we actually again, it's a tailor-made solution. So we actually try to understand, oh, maybe the statistical model works here, or maybe we need to build a knowledge graph for this organization. Oh, we need to have an extractive AI rather than generative AI. So those kind of decisions we actually take based upon the actual assessment that we do for organizations. Right, Earl?
That is perfect. So the answer to which models should we use is yes, probably a little bit of multiple of them. And
Right.
the final slide and the final idea we would like you to understand is actually, if we go to the next slide, because I can combine these two ideas, is this idea. Here's the road that most people are on, and they may not even realize that they're on this road. And they're on this road of they're going to start to incorporate AI. You're going to use more and more AI, but where you're eventually headed to is the point in time at which AI can help you develop your AI. If people are already doing that, right? A lot of the new tools that are coming on the market, you're seeing some of the greatest advancements that are having the biggest impact is where AI is aiding in the development of AI. You're going to have that same potential or scenario in your company, but at that point in time, you're going to want the AI you rely upon to help you navigate the usage of AI to be very smart on who you are, very specific to your industry, very smart on your particular data, customers, and industry. We're just calling it for now, we're just calling it kind of like an AI singularity, but it's that point in time where you have an AI in place that completely understands who you are as an enterprise, where your enterprise fits into the marketplace, and how your AI is working so that you can then internally start to use AI to advance your development of AI. So most people are on that road, whether they really realize it or not, but you can't get to that singularity moment, if you will, using a public model because it just won't know enough about you, your customers, or your particular industry. Srikanth?
Yeah, that's right, Earl. So I think you said it. It's like the AI singularity.
Okay, so we hope that you got a lot out of this. We really wanted you to walk away with some high level takeaways. Number one being the trust factor. If you're in an industry like finance, insurance, medicine, and more other industries, hallucination is a liability. Even in recruiting areas, right, where bias and things like that can come in, where the system can make things up, that's a liability. You need to maximize or control that or be aware of it. Cost, you now understand that there's right now costs and there's long-term costs. Long-term costs will dwarf right now costs, regardless of how big that ticket you're looking at doing your project is. Specialized insight is what allows you to differentiate to, one, better serve your customers, better serve your internal staff, and also innovate in your industry. You can take advantage of non-obvious relationships because you can see them. Precision is just not what LLMs are designed for. They're not necessarily designed for precision in terms of exactness or precise or truth, right? And that may matter in product visibility depending upon who you are. And hopefully we gave you some insight into that the ROI of a private AI model will extend beyond the initial project, because a private AI model will eventually increase the ROI of investments you've already made in other systems that AI will eventually help enhance the efficiency or the output. All ships rise with the tide, right? AI will be the new tide in which all of your business systems float upon. So the better you can get your mind around raising your AI tide, the more you are actually investing in raising the ROI of all other business systems. Anything else in conclusion, Srikanth, before we take any short questions?
I think we are good, Earl.
Okay. We really encourage one-on-one or direct questions so we can be very specific in your answers, but if you have any high-level questions, anything you'd like to ask, we can take like a minute or two to see if we can get those answers before we move to the next section on compliance and governance.
So I have a question in
Sure.
context, just to give perspective on what are the risks and safeguards in deploying private AI models against really sensitive customer data that's very prevalent in financial services.
Sure. Srikanth, did you want to?
Yeah, go ahead, Earl. That we discussed.
Yeah, I was going to say, so one of the fundamental there's a dramatic reduction in overall risk just because a private AI model is actually private. We can work within the already establishes rights permissions, security protocols, governance rules, all of those things. We sit inside of that pot, not outside of it. So just right off the bat, we start off in a much more controlled, safe environment. And then because of the nature of how we operate, we can build your interoperability with our model to be compliant with your specific rules around data governance and data management.
Right.
The other question we have is, what is one of the very first steps? The very first step customers should take is just an analysis of where you are and where you're trying to go. It's not complicated. What are you where would you like to go with AI? And if you answered some of those breadcrumb questions we left along the way, if you have answers to those questions, we can, in a very short engagement, give you very detailed insight on a path forward. And that path forward can be with us or independent of us, but it is a well thought out path forward that you should consider.